Let's have a conversation. How's it going, everybody? I'm so excited to have a returning guest onto my channel, Mr. John Brennan from the Real World Los Angeles. How you doing, John?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, John was actually the second person that I ever interviewed on my channel. It wasn't on this particular channel, but the second person overall after Ayana. And we had a great interview, and I'm so glad to have you back.
Yeah, I remember it very well. I'm grateful that Ayana suggested us to one another.
Yes. And something I wanted to say too was that after that particular interview that we did, my dad was sick at the time, and I knew that, you know, you're a pastor, a man of faith, a Christian, and I had wanted to ask you if you would, I gave you a prayer request basically to tell you that, you know, I was struggling, my family was struggling, and I strongly appreciated the fact that you not only stayed on that call with me for a while after the taping was done and, you know, gave me a very specific prayer, but have also continuously checked up on me since then and asked how my family was doing and told me to appreciate those times that I had, and told me that you could relate because of losing your father and your experience. And I've appreciated that. So I appreciate you as a person.
Well, man, thank you. Thanks for saying that. I can totally relate. And losing my father has been the hardest thing I've ever gone through. And I know that we all are going to go through that, but you are never ready to lose a parent. And I think the only thing harder would be losing a child. And, you know, it's just crazy. Death is a very, very difficult part of life. And there's nothing you can really say to take away that pain or loss. But, you know, if you've been through it, you can say, I understand. I love you and I'm pulling for you. I'm praying for you. And I can relate. And sometimes that's a little bit of comfort, is just knowing you're not the only one that's hurt like that. You're not the only one that's experienced that loss, and that somebody actually can identify. There's no magic words that anyone can say to take it away. But I just thought, man, he's going through what I went through. And there's literally nothing I can say except, bro, I feel you and I'm so sorry. And I'm praying peace over your family. So, yeah, man, glad to be your brother like that.
Absolutely. So I didn't give you a proper introduction. For those who don't know who John Brennan is, John Brennan was on the second season ever of The Real World. It was originally called The Real World California, which confused me when I was watching it back. And then
I had forgotten that. Yeah. I had completely forgotten that. We've been The Real World Los Angeles for so long. I had forgotten that the intro actually said The Real World California at first.
Yes. And you like to remind people that you are also on 3 seasons of The Challenge. Was it 3 seasons?
To remind people. Yeah, I like 3. I like to remind people of that because I'm not getting any calls back, and all these posers are stealing my limelight of something that I created and stepped out and took a risk on something. And yeah, I was on. People like, oh, you like when we did our homecoming for The Real World. Sky Topic was one of the executive producers, and she's one of the main producers of the challenge. And I said, Sky, get me back on the challenge. And she said, she's Australian, and she said, John, have you ever been on a challenge? I'm like, Sky, I was on the first challenge. Arguably, I started the challenge, that thing that you do now. And she's so oblivious that, you know, that I was even on it because it's been so long. Yeah, I was on the first challenge ever. It was actually, oddly enough, called Road Rules All-Stars, which really confused me because we were one real worlder from each season. There was Eric from the first Real World, me from the second, Rachel from the third, and then Cynthia from the Miami Real World, and Sean from the Boston Real World. So we were 5 real worlders doing Road Rules, and they called it the Road Rules All-Stars, which developed into the Road Rules versus Real World Challenge, and now is just called The Challenge. And then I was on Battle of the Seasons 2 or Battle of the Seasons 1. I'm not sure which one it was. And Beth was my partner, my roommate from the Real World. who's now a challenge legend.
Mhm.
And then I was also on the Inferno 2. And so I've been on 3 challenges. That's been a very long time ago. I do like to remind people of that because I was like, ooh, the challenge and all these people that are on there time after time after time. I want to puke when I see Fessy and Bananas and Nani and all these people, Anissa, that are like, I'll be back next time. I'm like, you have no grounds to be back next time. Why do you keep getting called back? So, yeah. I was on the first challenge ever, and I don't let people forget that. I was also on Road Rules, our real world trip with Tammy and Dominic. They flew to Nashville, got in a Winnebago, and came to pick me up at my house in Kentucky. And then we
It
drove
looks
to
like
Los Angeles.
Looks like it's cut.
Are we cutting out? How about now? You good? Let's see.
It froze for a second. Okay, now I see.
Okay.
Now I see you. Okay.
Now we're back.
I wonder if
Might
it's
be
just
our
me.
internet.
Is it cutting for anyone who's watching? Let me know in the chat. What were you saying? You were saying it cut off when you were talking about Fessy
Yeah,
Nanny.
my big, yeah. Oh, that, yeah. So, I mean, all these people keep getting called back. It just annoys me that they think so I do like to remind people that I was on the first challenge ever. I like to remind people that I actually started Road Rules because Tammy and Dominic flew to Nashville, got in a Winnebago, and came to pick me up in Kentucky. We drove to Los Angeles. And so I like to always say, so that was the start of Road Rules. And then I always say, and I started the Real World because the first season of the Real World sucked really bad. And so, that's my little pitch. I like to say that I started the Real World, Road Rules, and the challenge. Just to be obnoxious, because reality stars got to be obnoxious.
I'm gonna read some of these comments. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Sin says, "Hello, Mark and John. Great to see you both."
Great to see you too. Although
and says, "I understand that pain too. I lost my dad." Oh, you can't see the comments?
I can see them at the bottom of the screen here. Yeah, I can see those. Those are good. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, they're saying it's my Wi-Fi connection.
You're a little.
They're saying they think it's my Wi-Fi connection because you're coming in good. You're coming in good.
Well, that's the first time I've ever gotten my part right.
Sorry about that, everyone. I don't know why, but we're working through it. Lisa said, "Hello, everyone. Love John's first interview with you, Mark. Glad I made it."
Yeah, it was a good time.
Do you know The Miz?
First of all, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I'm a total wrestling fan.
Weren't you?
I'm sorry?
Were you on one of his seasons?
Yeah, I was on the Inferno 2 with him, and we, hit it off.
I thought so.
Really, really good. Of course, we had met before at an event they called the Real World Awards, which was up in Hollywood Hills, and it was crazy. We ended up throwing Jeffrey Ross in the pool. So I had met him, but we did the Inferno 2 together. As a matter of fact, he was supposed to go into the Inferno, and I took his place and lost and got eliminated and got sent home. So now I have this reputation for going home first all the time. But I actually saved the Miz from going into the Inferno. And had I not done that, he would probably not be the challenge superstar that he became and never would have become the WWE superstar that he is. So, yeah, the Miz is actually a friend of mine. I text him once in a while. I'm like, dude, I'm watching you on WWE. And, he's a huge star and I'm a huge fan. So, it works well.
So I wanted to ask you about your music career. Not necessarily starting at the point of your music career, but just what was music to you growing up?
Church was a big part of music. You hear Whitney Houston, you hear all these singers that, started singing in church, and gospel music is a big part. Elvis, gospel is a big part of people's music when they start out. And so, I mean, church music was just, a big part of my life at church. And then my dad would always have country music playing, Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and George Strait and George Jones. And I just learned to love country music at a very young age, just listening to the radio in the car with my dad. And then my older brother was really, really good at baseball, but they figured out that I wasn't that great at baseball. So instead of playing baseball, I started singing the national anthem at my own little league games. And then I'd go ride the pine and sit on the bench because I wasn't that great at baseball, but I would sing the national anthem at my little league games. And we lived in Phoenix, Arizona when I was little. And I'm a Kentucky boy, but I didn't always live there. But I got to sing the national anthem for the Phoenix Suns NBA when I was like 8 years old. And so that's when my parents really started encouraging me to sing, because they thought that, you know, that was something I was really gifted at, and it probably wasn't going to be sports.
And when did you learn the guitar?
I started learning guitar when I was about 14. I started when I was younger. We actually had moved to Maryland when I was in, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, and I took some lessons. But I got discouraged because my hands weren't really big enough and strong enough to make the strings not buzz, and I didn't practice much, and it didn't come easily. So I gave up on it a little bit. It wasn't until I got into about the 9th, 10th grade that I started taking lessons again, and my hands were bigger and stronger, and I started to really be able to play some, Garth Brooks songs, or, some country songs that were 3 chords, and I'm making progress now. Now I can actually play a song, and that was a whole different experience for me. But I had a good guitar, which is a big key. And I would always say, hey, if you're serious about learning guitar or getting your children to really learn to play guitar, get them a good instrument, because a cheap guitar, I know they're very expensive, but a cheap guitar can be discouraging, and then they'll just stop.
Yeah. I guess that makes a difference. I tried to learn the guitar a few years ago during the lockdown over here in New York, and it's very hard. Everyone said, "Oh, if you play other instruments, it's going to translate." Oh no, getting to those chords was really frustrating.
Do you play piano?
I play piano.
I wish I could. I think that the theory of chord progression and the theory of music can be translated, but I mean, it's a whole different learn.
I actually have my ukulele nearby because it was much easier for me to learn how to play this.
and see, I can't play. I wouldn't know where to begin on the ukulele, but I've heard it's a little easier, but I literally wouldn't know where to begin.
Yeah. So skipping ahead a little bit. So you started singing, you said, when you were 6, that was the first time you performed.
Yeah.
And then you learned the guitar sometime later. When you got to the point of the real world, when you were recruited, because you have talked about how you didn't want to go and you were asked multiple times and you ended up
still don't want to
go. Were you at that point in time thinking that you wanted to start a music career after you got off the real world?
Yeah. I mean, be really honest. Now after 30 years, you can look back and go, oh, the project was important, and learning to coexist with diverse people that were nothing like you was a really important thing to do. And you learn from yourself and you learn from each other. I mean, all that's true, and it sounds really cute. But the very bottom line was I was an 18-year-old singer that wanted to be a country music star. And Mary Ellis Bunham, she's the co-creator with Jonathan Murray of The Real World and all of reality television, she's passed away. But she was the one that said, John, this exposure is really going to propel you into your music career that you want so bad. And that was the thing that she said to convince me to come. I mean, I didn't have any interest in being on the show. It sounded a little silly to me, and I didn't think it was going to be long lasting and work. And boy, was I wrong. It worked, long lasting, but I didn't really think it was a cool idea, and I didn't really want to go. I had some apprehensions about how the editing process was going to work and how I would be portrayed as a Southerner. And none of that was a concern. I mean, honestly, I think I came across really, really well. And during the times where I didn't, the production still, made me look pretty good. But yeah, I really did it just for the the if you want to call it fame or attention, to jump into a music career.
And after that, from my understanding, you did start to jump into a music career,
I
and you
did.
opened for some pretty, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I rode that fame from the real world for a long time because there weren't so many seasons, so they were playing our show a lot. Like we were on television most of the 90s. When you turned MTV on, they were showing a marathon. So, if they only had 3 seasons, the first one was kind of old news, and they were, the new one, they were releasing one every week. So they just played the snot out of ours. I mean, it seemed like every time you turn on MTV, there was a marathon of me and Dominic or me and Beth. And yeah, so I got to open for Alabama, who was my favorite, my dream concert for me to open for. I opened for them 5 times and played the New York State Fair, the Ohio State Fair, the Pennsylvania State Fair. I mean, just huge, huge, huge shows with Alabama and special guest John Brennan. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not because I have a hit record. This is because the real world is so popular. And come see the guy on the real world from MTV open for this super mega group. I got to open for George Jones. I got to open for Tim McGraw. I got to open for so many people. Kenny Chesney. I mean, just big, 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 big names. And that's again because of the notoriety of the show. The real world was that popular. And I got a record deal, lost a record deal, had a big time manager, lost, just the ups and downs of the music business. It all kind of fell apart. And I thought, well, I'll regroup. But I didn't. I didn't regroup. And I ended up leading music in churches in Kentucky and Alabama, Florida, became a missionary in East Africa. And then my dad got sick, and I thought, wow, I really left some unaccomplished goals in Nashville, and my dad's dying. He's never going to get to see me perform on the Grand Ole Opry. He's never going to hear me on the radio. He's never going to see me realize my dream. And that was, for him, but also for me. And I just realized, you stopped pursuing a lifelong goal, and so you've done yourself a disservice. And so my dad passed away, and not long after that, MTV called and said, hey, we're going to do a homecoming reunion show. Would you be interested? Would you help convince your roommates to do this? And I said, yeah, that was a great experience for me the first time. And you're going to put us back in the same house? Really? That's going to be crazy. And it was. But I thought, I'm going to have all that same attention again. The show's going to be just as popular as it was in the 90s. And so I went and recorded an album and thought, this time I'm ready. Well, the show wasn't as popular as it was in the 90s. It's not even streaming on Paramount Plus anymore. Nobody really was interested in watching the homecoming. So I didn't have that recognition and that big second shot in the arm of fame. And so I'm just here in Nashville plugging away and not relying on any reality show to support, but I'm just going for it full force and on my own this time.
Yeah, so an interesting thing that I saw circulating before I even saw you post it, I'm connected on different reality TV forums, and I saw a post up there that's like, John Brennan drives Uber, right? So it was interesting because it was just the picture itself. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, John?
I can.
You can hear me. Yeah. So I saw the picture that you had posted on your Instagram, but I saw it elsewhere before I saw it on your Instagram.
Just this last week.
John Brennan drives Uber.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just this last week.
That wasn't supposed to be the headline.
Yeah.
People Magazine got in touch
with me.
I
figured because I read
on Instagram. Yeah. And they got in touch with me on Instagram. And would you be interested in a story? I'm like, oh, People Magazine. Let me think about it. Yes. I'd love to be in People. And I said, but is this like an online article? Because, I don't know how many people pick up a real physical magazine anymore. She, oh yeah, this will be online. I'm like, great. I'll be able to share it on my socials, blah, blah, blah. And then it's, immediately, John the Virgin drives Uber now. I'm like, that's not the headline I was hoping for. I was hoping for, reality pioneer breaks through with great new hit on the radio or something. And she actually messaged me, emailed me and said, I hope I hope you're not upset. My editor changed the headline, and I hope it wasn't hurtful for you or that you didn't think it was clickbait. And I thought,
Mm.
wow, clickbait is a word I never really had back in the 90s. Like, we didn't have, Twitter, and we didn't have online publications. And so I never thought I would be clickbait, but I think TMZ did a similar thing on me when the Homecoming came out. So
Yes.
it's like nobody really wants to, build me up. It's always like, let's make a headline that makes you look really bad. But it kind of backfired because people like, oh, you drive Uber. I use Uber all the time. I drive Uber. At least he's out there, trying to bust it and do whatever he can. And so I got so much positive from that, but I think it was meant to tear down. I mean, the headline was not a uplifting headline for a singer. Real worlder struggles and after
Yeah.
reality fame and now has to drive Uber. I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
ashamed. Like, I freaking love the fact that I'm out there and driving my pickup truck around Nashville and people get in and go, oh my goodness, you're the guy from the real world. Sing me a song. I'll say, I'll do better than that. Let me play you my record. So yeah, it was disappointing, but I was actually thinking about that on the drive here. The media actually loves me, like has always been good to me, holds me up in a positive light, but these headlines are always, just digging, and it is clickbait for sure. No doubt.
Yeah, so I was definitely gonna mention what you said there also about the clickbait, because I actually clicked on the article. I
The
read
article's
the
great.
article, and
Yeah.
it was like, and it was like Uber is one source of income, an extra source of income for me. So
Yeah.
so it wasn't quite how the headline looked. It
Well, the
wasn't like,
headlines never
oh,
are.
I'm down on my last leg, and this
Right.
Uber thing.
Listen, I'm just going to tell you this.
Yeah,
They paid us a
but then
very
the other,
small. They paid us a very small amount to do the Real World in 1993. A ridiculously embarrassing low amount that I can't share. Well, I probably could, but and then on the Homecoming, they paid us a ridiculous large amount, and I've still got quite a bit of that money, and so I spent a lot on my music, but they just portrayed it as in, oh, he's scraping. I'm not scraping, but I've
down on
invested a
his
lot of
luck.
that money. And I've got 3 jobs. I'm here at my record label right now. I work here. I also have my music here, and yeah, I'm a singer songwriter. I'm a speaker when asked to speak. I do it. I never hardly ever say no to a
Mhm.
podcast. Of course, I have a podcast now, and I don't want my guests to say no. I won't come on, and so I always say yes. I'll be on your podcast because I mean I love to put myself out there and promote myself and make new friends and talk and blah blah blah. But I got a lot going on. I got a lot going on. But the headline was kind of like, John drives Uber. Isn't this sad? And I'm like, could have been a great headline for me. It could have been, real world pioneers doing music. He's, got this great thing going on. But, you know, it is what it is. Nobody wants to really propel you. They always just want to dig at you. It seems like on this, online headlines. Don't ever believe every online headline. And you don't know how many times
Mhm.
I've commented back on social media and said, people like most people are like, oh, that's great, he's out there busting it. And then some people are like, oh, that is so sad, he's driving Uber. And I just want to say, read the article. Like, you just read the
Yeah.
headline, read the article.
That's the thing about this era, is that's typically what happens. The headline is the article for them.
Yeah.
The one sentence that they see, or the 2 sentences, that's it. They're not going to click.
Yeah. Well, somebody said something ugly to me the other day on Twitter, and I looked at their profile, wonder who it was that was hating on me, because I mean, I'm a pretty easy guy to love. I mean, most people don't hate me when they get to know me. And so I'm like, who is this spreading hate and just hating on me? And so I clicked on, they had like 113 followers. So I just replied, 113, that's cute. I'm like, get out of here with your 100 followers cracking on me on Twitter.
The interesting thing for me with that is that when people get cracked on for having a job after being on a show, especially for something like that, it's not like your show was a competition show, even where
Yeah.
you got this huge sum of money at the end that's gonna jumpstart your life and sustain you for 30 years. Um, so
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
expect? You
Well,
know?
somebody said, "Oh, did he really think a reality show 30 years ago it was going to help him retire?" And I just responded, "Dude, read the article. Nobody thought they were going to retire. You know, nobody thought they were going to retire. It's people are dumb. People are dumb."
So Ed asked, if you were 23 now with social media as it is, would you do it again?
23. Well, I would have loved to have done the real world at 23. I did the real world at 18. I was at a super disadvantage. My roommates were 23 and 24 and 25.
Mhm.
Now they're like 55 and I'm still under 50. So, that's how that works. But I told them at the homecoming too. I said, y'all had a real chance to take me under your wing instead of pick on me. Some of them did. Some of them did. But yeah, I mean, I would redo the real world at 18. I would redo it at 23. And I was really hoping that the homecoming was going to be a really big, fantastic experience because it was 8 episodes uh, on Paramount Plus, and I was 47 years old at the time, and so I would do it again right now. I mean, the real world is a fantastic experience in its integrity. I mean, I don't think that these Jersey Shores and these Big Brothers and these turkeys that are on the challenge now, I don't think there's a lot of integrity in the project like there was in the first maybe 4, 5, 6 seasons of the real world before people really realized, look, we're going to be really famous. And so now we have to really ham it up and act like, you know, a jerk really. But, you know, when by the time these bananas and these guys came along, the show was so popular that they knew if they got cast, they were, an instant star and a personality. The Kardashians and these Jersey Shore, all these things. The real world's first few seasons were just raw. No one told us where to sit or what to say, or there was no social media pressure. There was literally no social media. Like we didn't even have the internet in our house. I watched some episodes of the real world. I think I really first remember in Miami, and they're checking their email on a computer. We didn't have a
Mhm.
computer in our house. I didn't own a computer. I didn't own a cell phone.
Wow.
We didn't have internet in our homes. I mean, this was a whole different world. And we had only seen one season of the real world. And most of my roommates hadn't even seen that. So it was a brand new idea. We weren't acting a certain way. We were just being ourselves. And we weren't instructed to say or do anything like, reality shows are now. Hey, when you walk out, you're going to walk out in this order. And when you stand on the platform, you're going to stand like this. And, you're going
Yeah.
to eat this and you're going to eat at this time and you're going to go here and this is going to be your vehicle. None of that was part of reality TV in the first several seasons of the real world. It's part of everything now. When we did the homecoming, they're like, okay, John, y'all are gonna go bowling and you're gonna drive this car, but you're gonna pretend like it's Beth's personal car. So you need to ask Beth if you can drive her car. Like, that's not what we did. That's not
Yeah.
the real world that we know. And they're like, look, guys, reality TV has changed. There's a lot of money involved. We're making a production. This is not the same experience that you had 30 years ago. And we're like, no kidding, because nobody ever told us where to sit on the couch and what to say and what we're about to talk about. We decided that. And now you're deciding that. And it's weird. It's a whole
It's
different
so
thing.
it's a little bit difficult because I understand the elements of production and everything. And I also understand that now that there's social media, now that there's Twitter and Instagram and all these places where all this stuff gets posted, I know that sometimes the actual show itself, CBS or whatever, MTV, will get backlash if certain things happen on the show or, certain types of conversations, like things that happened on your season, for an example. You just plug that into 2023 and they would be like, let's cancel the whole show.
It's over. Well,
The
let's
show is
let's
over.
let's cancel the show. Let's cancel every person on it. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You think about the topics that our real world just experienced. Tammy got pregnant, had
Oh, it
abortion
was
on
so
the
much
show.
on your season.
Yeah, and Tammy
Yeah.
got pregnant, had an abortion on the show after ridiculing me for being abstinent. We had roommates with drinking problems. We still have a roommate, if you watch the homecoming, with substance abuse. And and things going on. I mean, we had race. We were in Los Angeles. We of course remember very freshly the George Floyd incident and how horrible that was. We are fresh off of the Rodney King riots that happened in 1992. We're in 1993, 1 year removed from all of that in Los Angeles. And so, I mean, we had race we dealt with, we had homosexuality, we had substance abuse, we had the whole blanket hallway, oh my goodness, you violated her incident. I mean, just we had a lot of drama.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So
Oh yeah.
it kind of takes away some of my love for the shows that I'm seeing now, because you, as fans, you can kind of see the production elements.
Yeah.
It
It's
doesn't really feel
contrived.
like an invisible hand anymore. It feels like here, yeah.
Yeah. An invisible hand is
What
a
was
great
that?
word. I mean, they literally told us don't speak to the camera people or the crew. If you do, they'll be fired. So don't speak to them. Pretend they're not here.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I mean, it's like okay, like as best as you can. This is the interaction between you seven people and nobody else. Now it's like they're having beers with the crew. It's like they're so aware that it's a production and there's a schedule about topics and conversations, and it's just not a reality show anymore. It's a cool show. I mean, they're fine, they're making great television, people are, but it's not spontaneous. There's no integrity. The people are acting like fools because they know there's a camera pointed at them. We didn't do that. I mean, I didn't love every
Mhm.
single one of my roommates all the time, to be honest, and they didn't love me all the time. But I think we can honestly look back and say we were being raw, and we were,
Authentic.
we were having authenticity, and had a lot of integrity in the project. Yeah.
I got a question here that says, "Do you like Reba and her music? I'm watching her as a judge on The Voice now, but loved her since her days on TV."
I do love Reba, and I've never really met her other than just to shake hands and say hello, like to have a real conversation. I never have, but she is a fantastic person. I mean, she has got a reputation here in Nashville and just across the world, really, for being a very, very awesome, genuine, very giving person. And she's very high class. I mean, she is one of the classiest entertainers. Just her reputation, but the few times I've even just been in the same room with her, again, I wish I was really close and we hung out, but I don't know her like that. But I've just met her, and she is one of the classiest people. Now she's a little cheesy sometimes. I will say this, and I haven't watched her on The Voice yet, but I mean, Reba's like, just it's like, come on, give me a break, tone it down just a little bit. But she's just awesome, and I have nothing but wonderful things that I have heard said about her or know about her.
And we got another question that says, "Did John end up listening to any Jim Morrison after Real World LA? I saw that they saw a giant painting of him on a building, but John didn't know who he was or the Doors."
Yeah, you know what's funny? Here's the thing that people don't know about me. I'm I, I'm I have a warped sense of humor. I mean, sometimes I play dumb just because I think it's funny. Like, I think I knew who Jim Morrison was, but I was playing dumb because I wanted my roommate at the time to think I didn't. And sometimes I do that. Just I don't know. I think it's funny. I mess with people. I don't listen to the Doors a lot, you know, but that's not my style of music that I really like to listen to. But I had heard of the Doors. I think I probably knew who that was, or maybe wasn't quite certain. I was familiar with, but it's so funny because I just watched that stuff back, and I'm like, why did you do that? Like, why did you say who's that? I mean, you know who that is, or you probably did. I have a funny sense of humor. Sometimes I do stupid stuff like that, but I think it's
You-
funny.
But you know what? I mean, on your season of the show, you seemed like you were so serious. I think that's the reason why everybody took everything seriously, because it's just how you came across on the camera. because
Yeah.
even now, seeing you do these interviews,
Yeah.
it seems a lot more. You can tell when you're making a joke a lot more versus
Yeah.
in the house.
Yeah, I've got people that think I'm really funny, and they're like, "Why don't you let your humor come out more?" And I'm like I had somebody, because Beth and I have started a podcast called Getting Real with John and Beth, and it's fantastic, and people are loving it. Blah blah. You should tune in. But I mean, people are commenting, "John, you're funny on there. Like, we didn't know you were funny." And I'm like, sometimes I just tone it down because people don't get me, but I'm usually joking or being extremely sarcastic, and so sometimes it's not humor, it's just extreme sarcasm. And
Yep.
sometimes my mom tells me that I do this a lot. Like, I'll play dumb, but I'm really 2 steps ahead of people. For instance, they made me look like this boy from Kentucky that had never left the state of Kentucky. Well, by the time I was on The Real World, I had lived in, not visited, I had lived in 5 different states. I was born in Wisconsin. I was raised in Phoenix and Maryland before I ever got to Kentucky. And then when they found me, I was in Tennessee attending college. And so they made me look like this very sheltered kid that had never experienced anything. I probably experienced more at the age of 18 than my roommates have even today. I mean, I've been in 11 different countries. I've lived in 10 different states. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I'll play dumb if you want me to play dumb, but I'm 2 steps ahead of you most of the time. Did I lose you?
It was freezing for me. That's why I paused.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna see if it's my camera. A second. Okay. All right. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
You can hear me?
You.
Okay. Just seeing if that helps, because when I attached my camera, that's when it started doing that.
Oh.
You see, the innocence of dropping a cowboy in the middle of LA really helped, I guess.
I got news for you,
John.
Yeah, well, thank you. I wear a cowboy hat. Yeah, I'm from Kentucky, but I don't wear a cowboy hat because I ride horses every day. I mean, honestly, I'm going to write a song called "I'm the MTV Cowboy" because I am the MTV Cowboy. But I've probably been on a horse less than 30 times. I mean, I'm not a cowboy. I'm a country music singer. So, and I am from Kentucky, but I'm telling you, I'm not like raised on the farm and on a horse and wrangling up cattle. I mean, I don't know how to do that. I was actually on Fox News with Rachel, who's the host of Fox and Friends on the weekends. Rachel from the San Francisco show, and she said, "Well, we want to do this segment. Are you good at roping? Like, we want to have a roping competition with the hosts because they do silly competitions." I'm like, Rachel, I've never roped a cow. I'm a country music singer, but I've never roped a cow. Like, no. So we ended up playing Name That Tune or something, but fill in the lyric. But, I didn't win that either. I should have won that. But yeah, it's so funny. They dropping a cowboy in LA. I mean, I'm not a cowboy, but I want to be.
I still remember that scene. I think you guys were in an RV or something, driving to Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's the pilot for Road Rules.
Oh, that was the pilot for Road Rules.
I mean,
did Tammy ever do a Road Rules? I don't think so, right?
Well, I mean, the first challenge was called Road Rules All Stars, and so it was kind of like Road Rules. We traveled around in Winnebago and did missions. So, I mean, which I really like better. Road Rules, you actually traveling, doing stuff. Real World, you're sitting on a couch arguing with Tammy, which isn't that fun, by the way.
I was actually just listening to your podcast with Beth, and I know that the last time that you were on my channel, you said, "I'm good with everybody, even if it's not somebody you talk to every day or anything like that.
Yeah,
I'm good with all my castmates." I know that's not the case for everybody,
right?
Especially after listening to your first episode, where, well, I guess people can listen to your episode,
go listen
and find that out. But
Yeah, I
Are
mean,
you
some
still in that?
personalities just don't click. Yeah, I mean, I can pick up the phone and call any of my roommates, and that was the deal. That was the project. Go make relationships with these people. They're nothing like you. They're not always going to like you. They may not ever like you, but this is the thing that you're doing. Go mingle with people that you normally wouldn't, and stop being polite and be real. And so I don't like every single one of my roommates, but I could call every single one of them right now and tell them I love them and how you doing, catch up, and have great wishes for them, and they would do that for me. I mean, there's no ill will. That's not the case with all of my roommates. And if you look across
Yeah.
all of the cast of The Real World, I mean, there are people that haven't talked in decades or since they left the house, and I'm just like, then you
Yeah.
missed it. Like the whole first season of The Real World, I was very good friends with all of the season 1 Real Worlders, and I like that. I like being friends with the other cast members from the other shows because I like other people. And it really hurts me that when we got ready to do the homecoming, I tried to get in touch with a bunch of them to say, hey, what can I expect, or what was your experience like? And several of them have blocked me on social media. They don't return my calls, and I asked one of them that I'm very close to still. And I said, what's the deal with your cast? They've like shunned me. He's like, well, I think that they don't really like you because, you're conservative. I'm like, have they learned nothing in the real world? Have they learned nothing about life? If you would actually block someone that you've been friends with for decades and had a really similar experience with and grown with as a person, you would block them out of your life and not answer their phone call because you have some different political views? Like, did you do The Real World, the very first Real World ever, for the world to watch and learn from, and you learn nothing from it? Like, I mean, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I'm the most likable person on my season of The Real World. And if the first season, those cast members can't even take a phone call or a text, or Kevin has blocked me from social media twice because I have several screen names. I'm like, dude, I think you blocked me. Did you mean to? Like, we're buddies. Blocked me again. I'm like, bro, have you learned nothing about life? You can't be friends with a white conservative country singer. Are you that narrow-minded in your views? Really? You learn nothing from The Real World. You're a failure at The Real World. So, I mean, really, the only people that have not done that to me on that show are Eric, remains a very good close friend. Of course, we did the Road Rules All Stars together, the very first challenge, and we had a lot of great experiences together. And Norman and Eric are very close friends of mine, but the rest of them, I think, have learned absolutely nothing. Like, I don't even consider them Real World alumni, and it's a shame because they were the first. But they instead of learning from people that aren't like them, they just shut you out of their life. So I think that's a loser. I think that's a failure at The Real World. It's a shame that the first cast was such a failure at the project. Oh, I've never said that publicly, by the way. This is the first time I've ever ripped on them like that. So there's going to be some backlash now. Come on, bring it.
So we have another question, comment in here that says people are way too quick to burn bridges nowadays. People have so much more in common here to pay attention to anymore.
I wish I had tweeted that. That's the best thing I've heard all day. Very true.
Hi, John. Do you find it more stressful on your show compared to all the other shows like Big Brother or Survivor, for example?
Well, I've never been on Big Brother or Survivor, but those are network television shows, so we're not talking about cable anymore. So arguably, those are much more popular and much more seen by the masses than The Real World on cable. And certainly nowadays, I mean, nobody sees me on TV anymore. I think that Big Brother and Survivor would be very, very stressful. Anytime you're on a television show with a camera pointed at you, there's stress involved. And I'll just tell you, there's always this thing about how am I going to be portrayed? Am I going to be cut? Am I going to be clickbait the next day? Am I going to be canceled in this cancel culture? I mean, yeah, I would say there's more pressure now. I mean, I'd love to sit here and say, no, I had the most pressure. I'm, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that. I think we had the least amount of pressure. There wasn't the internet. There wasn't social media. No one had ever heard of Twitter. Facebook was not even a thing. So I think it's more stressful now, to be very honest.
I told you I've met some people now from certain different events that I've gone to that have these people from these shows. And several of them have been on one season of one show. And they're like, based on Twitter, things that people said on my Instagram, DMs, I never want to be on TV again. So I've heard that it's rough out there.
It is. I mean, you have to be very thick-skinned. I mean, I thought, certain publications were going to do positive things, and then, they ended up ripping you, and you're like, wow, that's not the way the reporter, kind of couched this whole interview. But you just expect that. If you're not willing to throw yourself out there, then don't do this, because this is, a crazy clickbait headline type the world we live in. But I'm throwing myself out there with my music. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to be the guy from the real world or the reality show. I'm not sure I want to be that person anymore. I'm like, you're that person. You're never not going to be that person. You might as well go back on this homecoming. And I've talked a lot of people into doing the homecomings, not just for my season, but for the other seasons. I've really just counseled and said, look, you're already a reality star. Not doing this reunion is not going to make you not a reality star. You are one. Well, I'm not sure I want to blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. You already did it. Like, you're already on the Real World New Orleans forever and ever. Like, go do the homecoming, get paid, go revisit this thing that you already are. Tammy came to that revelation, I think, for our homecoming. She's got so many other big things that she's done and is doing. She's like, I don't really want to be Tammy from the real world anymore. Like, I'm bigger than that. It's like, you're always going to be Tammy from the not doing our homecoming doesn't make you less of a reality star. It doesn't make you less of a real worlder. You are that. Like, embrace it, because it's who you're always going to be. But yeah, people are mean. And so, I do think a lot of reality stars now are posers. Like, they're tools. I mean, honestly, I don't know a better name for them. They're fake. They're just, I watch it. I'm like, you are acting so fake right now. You're acting so fake. But I give them all credit. I give them all props for even showing up to the gig, being on camera, being on the internet, letting people tweet about you, letting these big, studios, networks promote you, because you're on the chopping block and they don't care about you. They care about promoting their product. And when it's done and over, they don't even call you and say, hey, we're taking it off Paramount Plus. They just take it off. And you're like, oh, it's not there anymore. So I'm erased that quickly. Are my feelings hurt? Well, no, because you knew this going into it. This is not a family. It used to be a family. And I've said this with my cast members. Back on the Real World in 1993, when we got done, there was a party. There were hugs. They checked on us. Okay. They stayed in touch. My phone rang 2 or 3 years later. Hey, we want to put you on Road Rules All-Star Show with one person from each Real Worlder. They sent Christmas cards. Now, it's like, when we got done with the homecoming, we had a press day. We were looking around for the producers. We're like, hey, where's so-and-so? They're like, oh, they're gone. They didn't even say goodbye to us. Like, we just did this very long 8-episode. Yeah, there was no goodbye. There was no handshake. There was no, hey, this turned out really good. Congratulations, you guys. No chips with dip. Just nothing. It was just like, oh, they're gone. Well, are we gonna? They didn't say goodbye. Like, we're here with Entertainment Tonight today, but the production's over. No one, like, there was no family. There was no family.
So they were kind of like, and scene, and then everyone just kind of split up.
It was over. They disappeared into the control room, and then we were like, okay, well, we'll reconvene, and we'll have a little, hey guys, this was really great. Nothing. Just gone. And I hadn't heard from them. There's one that I've heard from. One of the producers.
I actually loved Homecoming personally. I thought that it was, I don't know how many people were watching it, but.
Well, I'll tell you this. I liked the New York one and the New Orleans one. Ours was really Tammy heavy. And to be really honest, I think they only did our homecoming season because, there's one producer in particular that was kind of the head boss, and you can tell who he's in love with on the homecomings. He's driving the ship. I mean, he loved Tammy, and when Tammy finally agreed to do our homecoming, every single part of our homecoming was about and surrounded Tammy. I mean, he was just
Yeah.
and so it was really Tammy heavy, and people like, we didn't really get an update on you. It's like that wasn't the goal. The goal was to make a Tammy season, and they did. Like Glenn has 3 grown, beautiful, wonderful children that came to our house. They came to our house for 4 hours, never mentioned. Beth has 2 beautiful children and a husband that came to the house and never mentioned. I have a 21-year-old black son, like not my biological son, but a young man that I've mentored and took as my son, and he FaceTimed me several times, and they never showed it or mentioned. That wasn't part of the storyline, So they had their story. They stuck to it. So I really like the other homecomings more than ours.
I just switched to my phone.
Oh, okay.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. Maybe there won't be that delay, but yeah, I really like the other homecomings better. I think the New York homecoming, it was a little heavy. Like they did 6 episodes and 2.5 of them were about Kevin and Becky fighting about race. And I want to say, gee, Kevin, after 31 years of you being on The Real World, no one knows anything about you except for you're a disgruntled black person that wants to talk about race 24/7. That's the only thing anybody knows about Kevin Powell. And it's like, man, there's probably so much more to you as a dude. And I thought 2.5 episodes of that was a little bit much. But I thought the homecoming, the New York one, was great. I think ours was really, really Tammy heavy, and they missed some really, really great updates on my roommates and our lives. It was just more about, Tammy, and Tammy and David fighting than it should have been a homecoming and an update on these characters that people. And then the New Orleans homecoming was great, except it was, a lot about just, Julie and
Julie. Yeah.
It was Julie heavy, and not in a way that Julie likes, by the way. I mean, we had Tokyo.
I'm sure she wouldn't.
No. And so when Beth and I started our podcast, Getting Real, we asked Julie to be a guest, and she said, and she's a dear friend of Beth and I, like we love her dearly, and she loves us. We're friends. And she said, I'm not interested in being on any podcast talking about the real world. I am reality TV'd out. I'm burned. I don't like it. It's hurt me. Tokyo was on our podcast, and he's a completely different person than he was on the show. Than he was on the first New Orleans show. And if you saw the homecoming for New Orleans, you see a transformation, and just, he's a great, incredible person. And he was a great guest for us, and you'll enjoy his episode. But Julie just flat said no. We have Eric Neese coming on. So Eric is, remains a good friend, and he's the first reality star of all time. I mean, Eric Neese is the first reality. There will never be a reality star before Eric, unless you want to argue Julie, but she's blocked me out of her life. So, yeah. Go ahead.
I know you said that Tokyo is a good friend of yours. I was actually kind of glad that he got that chance to rewrite the script of, how people viewed him on his original season. Because they were like, he's arrogant, he's kind of aloof, right. He doesn't want to hang out with the rest of the roommates or anything like that.
Right.
And he came back as a whole different person.
Yeah, and admittingly, he said, "Yeah, I missed out on a big opportunity to do this the way I wanted to do it with you guys. And if you can forgive me and forget that, let me do it now. I'm here for the homecoming. Let's do it now." And they did. They gave him that grace, and they said, "Wow, we're really enjoying having you in our lives now." And yeah, I mean, that's a great example of someone going, "Hey, I missed this opportunity." There were people on my show that missed it, like Beth connected with Tammy at our homecoming, and they literally hardly ever spoke in the real world. They just avoided one another. Dominic and Beth did not click. And so they avoided each other for 22 weeks. and now they live in the same city and are great friends. And last time I
Oh
was in Los
wow.
Angeles, Dominic came over to Beth's house and we sat around and just had a great time. We went to dinner. I mean, so I mean, it's 30 years of perspective, but it's not always on TV, but those relationships are still there. And so, you can never ever
It,
forget living with Dominic. I mean, and they're never ever going to forget living with a country singer that wears a cowboy hat from Kentucky. It's something that would have never happened in their life, and it's something that now they look back and go, "That was kind of valuable." Kind of love John.
yeah, you know something, John? I feel like what you're saying is whether you end up liking all of them or not, or having these future relationships with them, they're always going to be some kind of family in a way,
Yeah.
because you all have this shared experience that nobody else will ever have except for that one specific group of y'all that were in that house.
And it's a dysfunctional family sometimes. No family's hunky dory all the time. So it's a real family. And just because there's not a camera there for Paramount Plus or MTV doesn't mean that there's not still a relationship. I mean, Beth and I have a podcast together. Well, we fight like brother and sister. Like, I mean, we don't get along all the time. She hung up on me the other day. And it's just like, okay. But they're real relationships, and they're crazy relationships that never would have happened. But I enjoyed getting to know the other cast. That's why I really enjoy being on the challenge. I love being on the Road Rules All Stars. I love mingling with other seasons of. Like somebody asked me, did I know the Miz? I mean, that's pretty darn cool. I didn't have to live with the Miz. I'm close friends. I'm close friends with Arissa from the Las Vegas show. I'm close friends with Coral.
Arissa, oh wow, I remember Arissa.
Nobody would guess that I was friends with Arissa and Coral. I'm friends with Ayana, but I've
Coral,
never met
yeah,
her.
you told me that one last time, and that I was like, whoa, that came out of nowhere.
It does
for
come
me.
out of nowhere. I would love to be on a challenge with Coral. No one would suspect that we're close friends, and we would have this hidden alliance, and it would make the whole. How in the world are John and Coral friends? Like, they're nothing alike. But Ayana,
Yeah,
who connected you and me together. I've never met Ayana. I mean, I've talked to her on the phone.
yeah,
I've texted. She's going to be a guest on our podcast, but I've never met her. But I love her, and she's my friend.
I can't miss that episode for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So
it's funny. You were she. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, she suggested to you to have me on, which is wild.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you how that happened.
She was the first guest. Yeah.
I think I sent her a message because she was on Challenge Mania or your show or some other podcast. And she's like, y'all go check out John Brennan. He's the guy from the Los Angeles season. He's got a new song called I Ain't Done Singing Yet. And I love that song.
I know she mentioned you on my podcast for sure.
Yeah. And she just started bragging on me. And I'm like, who is this person? And Beth said, Ayana was on Road Rules. You need to go. And so I looked her up. I'm like, oh, I remember this girl. She's crazy. And so I started watching her, and I just sent her a message. I'm like, hey, thanks for saying good things about me on these podcasts you're doing. She's like, John, I love you. I'm like, we never met. And she's like, I think you're so nice. I love your music. I love you. And I'm like, you're about the easiest friend I've ever met. I mean, we've been friends ever since. So yeah, I like that.
You want to know something funny, John? You want to know a funny story, John? I went to visit my sister in Maryland, and Ayana had seen that I was over there, and she was like, oh, come to this barbecue. She was at some barbecue, and I went over there with my sister. My sister doesn't watch these shows, so she doesn't know the challenge, the real world. She doesn't know anything like that. So I just told her she was on this show, and then she did some seasons of the challenge. She's like, oh, okay. She just came with me. So she met Ayana. And when we left, she said, oh, that lady is so nice and sweet. She's a good person. I really enjoyed meeting her.
And then you showed her the salad.
I showed her. I don't even know if I showed her that. I think I showed her some of her previous stuff, Semester at Sea.
Oh, okay.
Some of the arguments she had with Veronica.
Oh yeah, that one's
And she
good.
was like, is this the same person that we met?
And she's on the one of the all stars here, and she's like, she ate Jody's salad, which I love Jody. She's
That
like,
was hilarious.
and she's like, I ate your salad. I didn't even use a fork. I'm like, who is that? Ayana, you go on these shows and you lose your marbles. You're with these crazy people and it drives you to the loony farm. It's like, Ayana's nothing like that. And Jody's just looking at her like, are you serious right now? You are acting
At all.
strange. I mean, it's just, yeah, I always tease Ayana. I'm like, hey, so anyway, don't eat anybody's salad today, okay? And use a fork. And she's like, John, shut up. But yeah, I mean, she's the coolest person ever. I don't know what gets into these people when they get on these shows. Like my roommate Beth. I mean, Beth on the Real World is kind of chill, but Beth
Yeah.
on the Challenge,
Yeah,
is like this entirely different creature.
like when she baited Tina to punch her in the face.
I didn't even see
That was
that.
something.
But there's a lot of.
Oh, you didn't see that one?
Yeah, I'm friends with Tina, and I'm extremely close with Beth, and yeah, it's just kind of like Beth's always like, John, she hit me. I'm like, well, I kind of understand. No, I'm messing with you. I'm messing. But I'm just serious. I mean, it's just crazy. Get along, right? Uh-oh.
You lost me again?
Hope it's not me causing the internet problem.
Sorry for the technical difficulties.
No problem, man.
But it's interesting all the types of personalities of these people that you have befriended. Because on your show, as you know, they painted you as, the person who wouldn't accept or tolerate anybody.
Listen, I'm going to go on record on your podcast and say this, okay? I'm probably the most tolerant person that's ever been on The Real World. And I'm not bragging about that. I'm just telling you that, I'm a Christ follower. The Spirit of the Lord is in me. I'm tolerant of people. Like, I'm very tolerant of everybody that's been on The Real World. Like, I don't have hate for anybody. And any of my roommates, anybody that's on there, I can pretty much tolerate any kind of person because I see everybody as a child of God and a creation of God. And so they made me look so narrow-minded, and I'm stubborn. Now I will say I'm stubborn. I'm very stubborn, and I can be narrow-minded, but I'm also very, very tolerant and grace-giving because I've received a lot of grace. So I'm grace-giving, and I make a point, especially at this age, of loving people. Like, I'm not out there trying to hate people. People are real eager to just hate on one another. And that's not my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So I did want to ask you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you still actively trying to have a music career where music is your only thing that you're doing with your life?
Yeah.
Or your main thing, I should say, not your only thing.
Yeah. Yeah, only thing would be crazy, but main thing for sure. I mean, a music career nowadays doesn't last 30 years. If you have some hits on the radio or, stream on the streaming services. I've got, everybody's like, oh, you need Spotify and TikTok. I've got Spotify and TikTok. I'm just trying to let the world know that my music is out there. I'm trying to get on the radio. I want to be on tour. I want to go do concerts. Those are my goals. Those are my goals. But I don't know that I'll get to do that for 30 years because, I'll need a walker in 30 years. But so a lot of my really valuable time for doing that is past. It's behind me. I've spent years in ministry of somebody said, oh, well, you sacrificed a lot of your good time. I mean, I've baptized over 200 people. I've got kids all over the world that I'm a father figure to. I've had a great time in ministry. I've had a great time on reality television. I don't have any regrets, but I am still trying to do one of my unfinished goals. And so I'm trying to have my cake and eat it too. And, I'm going for it. Life is too short. I'm not going to do anything passively. A lot of people are like, well, I'm going to put this music out, and if it does something, fine. No, that's not my approach. I'm going to put this music out, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make it, take off. I don't do anything halfway. Beth and I have a podcast together. We're not just randomly doing a podcast when we have time. We're doing a podcast weekly. We're having great guests. We're having great episodes. We're doing it very professionally. We've bought, great equipment, and we're not just going to do a podcast. We're doing a great one, like you do a great one. I'm going to do music.
Appreciate that.
Full force. I mean, this is not a side hobby for me. Like I'm doing this, doing it right. So yeah.
I really resonate with that part of your journey. The fact that even though you put this down for so many years, you said in that article that you got interviewed for, music is what to do. Did it cut out for you? You said music is what I was born to do. And actually, People magazine is not the first place that you said that, because when I Googled John Brennan, anytime I have somebody on, even though I've had you here before and we've communicated, I still kind of look back and see whatever other interviews or information I can find. Honestly, Google was a lot of the clickbait. If it said anything about homecoming, it was attached to your conversations with Tammy or David, or, like certain clickbait moments. But the thing is, you've been saying since homecoming, this is what's in my heart. This is what I want to do. And I ain't done singing yet. I really like that message.
Yeah. And if you listen really closely, although I was younger and didn't articulate myself quite as well, I've been saying that ever since I came onto the scene. I even said it at the beginning of this particular podcast. I did the real world, not because I had a desire to be on MTV or had a desire to be on reality television, because I didn't even know what reality television was. I did the real world to become the singer that I felt like I was born to be. And I'm always doing a lot of things, but I have missed performing. I have missed making country music. It's what I was born to do here on earth. I mean, that's what excites me and energizes me. It's what I'm passionate about. And that's such a cliche thing to say, but that's what makes me tick. Like when I hear a great song, I'm like, when I get on stage and perform, I'm like, yes, that is my second nature. That's where I belong. I mean, I could go back and do a reality show. It's like my second or third nature. Honestly, when I was back at the homecoming, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is just like the old thing I used to do. But it's not the thing I'm most passionate about. I continue to get those opportunities, it seems like. But what I'm most passionate about is creating music. And that's why I'm going for it. So full force.
I feel like I understand that exact feeling that you're describing, because when I started doing this, and like I said, it was very early when I interviewed you. You were the second person I ever had on the channel. And in a sense, I was like, what am I doing here? Because I'm not really a podcaster. I'm just somebody who likes these shows, who said, hey, I have kind of good conversations with some of these people that I've met. Maybe it would be something that people would like to view on my channel. Let me just give it a try, type of thing. And after that interview, I actually felt like, hey, maybe I should do more of this. I actually enjoy doing this. And then there's the things that I have to do to pay bills.
Mm-hmm. Like
Uber. And when I do those things, I'm like, I'm kind of good at this. I'm okay at this, but it's not really what's in my heart, or it's not really what I am born to do. So I just love that, the fact that you have that drive after all this time. Like you said, this is what I wanted at this point at 18, and this is what I want now, and I'm going to keep going for it. Because I tend to feel like, I got some advice from somebody one time, actually Kenny from The Challenge. I met Kenny a couple of times, and he said, if I want to do it, he said when he started his gym, he said, I want to fail forward with whatever I'm doing. He said he got to a point where he was like, even if I fail at this thing that I love doing, is it really a failure because I'm doing the thing that I love?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And yes to everything you just said. But I want to encourage you. I'm glad to be back on your podcast. I love doing your podcast because I love the first time. Uh, I mean, I feel like you're not just a guy I talk to on the computer. Now you've become a friend. I mean, we text back and forth. I love your posts. Your posts on Instagram is where I follow you the most, are very inspirational. And man, you're a great follow. I mean, I love following you, and your posts are incredible. As a matter of fact, I think I added 2 of your posts to my story here in the last 24 hours because it just really they were so
Thank
great.
you.
Had nothing to do with me being on with you today, but there's another podcaster that I've become good friends with. His name is Mike Lewis. I don't know if you've ever seen his podcast, but
Oh, I know. I know who Mike Lewis is. Yeah.
well, he's a great. I mean, he's close to New York too. You guys would be good friends. You should hang out because, I mean, so many podcasters are just like picking and yeah and outrageous. But I mean, the 2 of you are so. I want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing because people like me love coming on. People obviously like listening. You don't have an agenda. Like you're just actually
Right.
speaking and learning and listening and throwing nuggets out there without an agenda to be digging or ugly. And it's a blessing. It's really fun to be on, and it's really good to listen to as a listener. But I think it builds a lot of trust. And when people, this is what I've told Mike, when people start watching and learning what you're like as a podcaster, they're going to be like, I want to be on that. I hope I get asked to be on that, guys, because there's no like ugly agenda. There's no risk of looking like a buffoon because you're really good at it, bro, is what I'm telling you. You have a kind heart, and that makes
Oh,
people want to listen.
I strongly appreciate you saying all of that. Thank you so much because I know exactly what you're talking about now after a year of doing this. And I've watched other interviews when I try to get somebody, or if I get somebody who agrees to go on my channel, and I'll look up some of their other interviews so that I don't ask all the same questions or just to kind of get a feel for them. I remember this interview of Ayana's actually when I was researching for my Ayana interview. She jumped on there and they asked her like 3 or 4 questions that were very personal. They're like really personal questions about her life outside of TV. And I saw the expressions on her face that she was making, and she was not comfortable with the questions.
Yeah.
And even though that might be something that gets you a lot of views, I never want anyone to jump on my channel and feel like I came on there to be like, let me ask these really invasive questions so that I can get people to just view this in the viral era type of thing. So I appreciate you telling me that staying the course will attract the people, even if it's not in large number, it'll be the right people.
Yeah. Well, there's so much ugly out there, and there's so much hate going on. I mean, honestly, but we're not supposed to be friends, by the way. I mean, you're a black man in New York, and I'm a white conservative in the South. We're not even supposed to be friends, but we just shocked. Well, I mean, we love each other, and I'm like, I love that part about life when what's expected is not always what happens. But yeah, you're a low threat. You're a low threat to be on because you're very chill, and I'm sure that's why you built up a following. But
you don't lose sleep at night when I ask you to get on the show. Is that what you're saying?
How long did I take to say yes? I would love to have you on our podcast with me and Beth. I think it'd be a great conversation, and our listeners.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah,
I'm 100% down for that.
Collaborate a little bit. That'd be so great.
That's a great podcast, by the way. I listened to the first episode, like I was telling you. A lot of good information in there. Beth was the kind of the toned down Beth that you're describing.
Yeah. She gets on the challenges, and she's like, I think what happens is she feels like a dog in a corner. Like she feels like she's being trapped and attacked. And so she gets in defense mode. But Beth's chill. She's actually really great at podcast hosting, and we look forward to we've got 5 episodes out. We've got Eric Neese to come, John Murray, Ruthie, and
Oh,
Tech.
you got John Murray?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't even think I've heard a John Murray interview ever.
He doesn't do a lot. And we've got Matt Kunitz and Tech and Ruthie. And, we've got great guests coming up. And so those are already in the can, and we're going to be recording some more really soon. And, we sit down and we do like this is live. We don't do that. That's brave. We do, maybe 3 in a day, 2 or 3 in a day. And then we got 6 weeks, and we release them one at a time every Monday. And so, she's like, John, we need to record some more episodes. I'm like, well, we got 5 in the can. Let's just take a breather for a minute. All right.
Yeah. I mean, my viewers asked me to do this one live. I almost wish I had pre-recorded it because of these technical difficulties, but I'm still glad that people got to connect and ask you questions while you were here. Yeah, I know that's something they like.
Yeah, and that's something that we can't do. We're like, email us your questions and we'll try to get them on. But it's a whole different deal. And ours is just audio, but we'll have you on ours, and then we'll give you the file, and you can put it out on your channel too, and then it'll be a true collaboration.
So what I want to say too, you mentioned about you going on the show. You mentioned about going on Paramount Plus and doing Homecoming, and how afterwards it wasn't really like a family environment. This is no insult or anything, or no disrespect meant to anybody who's ever got on my platform. But I will say, I think I've interviewed 10 different people since the time I interviewed you. And maybe 2 or 3 of them are in any kind of communication with me afterwards. So it's a little, for most people, it's a little bit transactional. I appreciate them coming on here, but I'll say you're one of the few people, and I always mention this, you're even in my intro. I don't think I played the intro with you in it, but you're in my channel intro. I have that. I'm going to play it before you go. But you're one of the people who consistently checks up on me and just reaches out, even if it's just a, hey, I was thinking about you. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How's your family doing? And I've really appreciated that, because like you said, before it was just, oh, I got John Brennan from TV on my channel. And now it's just like,
that's not impressive.
I'm having a conversation. Yeah.
That's not impressive. I mean, most people would say, what's a John Brennan? What's the Real World? I mean, hey, I was on the Real World on MTV. Ever heard of it? They're like, no. It's like, okay. So, but I'm always in the mode of making new friends and making new relationships. And so that's why I feel like I succeeded at the goal and the project of the Real World. So I'm not on the Real World, but I'm on your podcast. And so, yeah, you say, oh, my dad's sick and he's, possibly going to pass away. And I'm thinking, well, I can relate to that. I'm going to be friends with this person. We're going to journey through life together. And so if we do some podcasts on the internet, great. But, we cross paths for a reason. We like each other. We love each other. And we're going to be, friends and brothers here on this planet.
What I didn't even realize that's so funny is that I didn't realize that Ayana hadn't connected with you prior to you seeing that clip. Because the way she was talking about you was as if you were already friends. But then hearing you talk about the clip, I'm like, oh, I guess she connected with you through the music.
I can't remember.
And then,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I know is, people were like, how do you know Ayana? We all were never on a show together. I'm like, who is Ayana? She's talking about you on these podcasts. She loves your music. I'm like, let me tell her thank you, because I don't know.
Isn't that something?
But I just life is like that. Relationships are important, and we got a lot to learn from one another, and we gotta share the love in our heart with one another. I mean, it's very cliche, but I mean, look at the shape our world's in.
Yes. You want to know something too with her? I had a similar experience as I had with you in a way. I didn't reach out to her for a podcast at first because I wasn't podcasting when I first reached out to her. I just had seen an episode of All Stars, the Challenge All Stars, and she did something kind of inspirational in that particular episode. Before they had all those huge Ayana moments, she beat, who was it that she was going against? She was going against somebody in one of the challenge eliminations, and she won, and then went back and helped the other person finish. And she was like, I'm helping you claim your power. And that was like a high Ayana moment. So I just reached out to her and I told her similar stuff, like, you know, I'm going through stuff with my dad. And this, just watching you on here has been inspirational, whatever. And she started leaving me voice notes as a response. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry about what's going on with your dad. This is what I experienced with losing my mom X amount of years ago. And she gave me some tips, you know, similarly to what you did. So when we first had our interview,
she's a prayer warrior. I can tell you what that's about. She's a prayer warrior. And when she sees something she can pray for, or, you know, whatever she says, send good energy. What she's doing is she's praying. She's praying for you. It's what she's about. I can just tell you. It's good stuff.
Yeah. So like similarly, when we had that first interview, I was like, I'm nervous. And she was like, oh, there's no need to be. She said, I'm a human being, just like you're a human being. I put on my pants one leg at a time. And she said, I don't see myself as Ayana, the superstar, and Mark, the lowly person down here. She was like, I looked at your profile. I like the things that you post, like similarly to what you just said today. And she said, I think that we're here. I'm just a person who has had different experiences than you in life, and that's it. And those two interviews with you and her, I found to be very important for me continuing with this. So I believed in the timing.
Well, do continue. You're sharing. You're just really sharing a really good vibe, and I don't ever say vibe. It's not one of my things, but you got a lot of. You got a lot.
I made you say vibe.
Yeah, you made me say vibe. You got a lot of goodness out there on the internet, and keep that up, man. I'd love to have you on our podcast. And
I want to play the intro for you quick.
All right, yeah.
I'm gonna play the intro for you. It's like a minute.
Okay.
Are you seeing it?
Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm sure I'll see you at one of these events again soon.
We got Mark with the Mindful Reality podcast, who I've been a guest on, and it was a blast.
Thank you for having me, honestly, and I cannot wait to do it again. We're going to do this again in the future. I just know it.
That's good, man. Uh-oh. Well, now it's just me. How y'all doing? Are you guys? I don't know. I'm supposed to stay on here. There's people watching. Oh, here you come. Hey, you're back.
I might have played the wrong one. Was that the one that you were in, or no?
No, but I think I was in the intro that that you played at the start of this, I think.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll send it to you later. It to you later.
Yeah, man, I did. Now I will say this. I saw one poser I saw one poser from the real world in the challenge on there. Yeah, you know when I talk about these people that are just always hamming it up when there's a camera pointed at them, I'm just like, really? I mean, there were some really, I didn't recognize everybody in there, but there were some really, positive, smiling folks on that. And then there was at least one that I'm like, give me a break. If I ever got to be on a show with you, I'm going to throw up.
Do they have an orange beard by any chance?
Hey, true story.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on here, John, again.
Yeah, bro.
And I appreciate you, and I look forward to, collaborating.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, we're gonna be in touch. I love you, man. I keep taking it one day at a time. Keep those positive Instagram posts and keep making great podcasts. And have me back.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, brother. Have a great day.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. You too.